today, Neil?
I'm excited to have a different co-host, and again, it's a Pittsburgh guy, so I gotta love it, right? So we'll have our Pittsburgh type of conversation, and I guess the Pittsburgh connection continues with Carnegie Mellon. I was talking to off air about to Michael and our guest today about my experience starting in broadcasting over at WRCT Studios. So that's a long time ago, but 10 years ago. But again, it's a great place. I'm excited to welcome to the program Anuraag. He is the founder of Zensors. Anuraag, thanks for stopping by. What's your perspective?
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Absolutely, Anuraag. So let's kind of talk a little bit about your background really quickly and how you started Zensors.
Yeah. So, as you mentioned, I'm from Carnegie Mellon. I did my undergrad and master's degree from Carnegie Mellon. It's a unique combination where I did technology and computer science, but also interaction design and understanding how people interact with technology. A lot of what we're doing at Zensors today actually comes from this unique intersection of the two. So AI has been around. AI has been the talk for a lot of people in a lot of different vertical markets today. And I think the biggest questions that we saw around AI is the complexity and the challenges around really understanding it and getting people to use it and adopt it. It's a scary thing for a lot of people. They think of artificial intelligence as something that is a little bit beyond their reach if they've never really studied computer science or taken deep statistical or machine learning education. Part of our experience around how people understand and interact with technology comes from this research and this concept of really understanding what makes technology accessible and usable. So how do you take a complex topic such as AI, but make it palatable or make an experience around it such that anyone in the world around us can interact with it, not having to worry whether it's AI or not. And so a lot of that led us to some research around new AI developments that were happening in computer vision in specific, and making it possible for people who have never done anything in computer vision to start playing with the capabilities of computer vision. And a lot of that research work ultimately led out to what today is Zensors, where we have a platform that anyone can walk up to and start using and start creating new capabilities using their existing camera systems, all empowering an average user to author and create AI without really knowing what AI has to be or really understanding the deep technical details behind it.
So, Anurag, you mentioned human-machine interaction, and that's obviously a big thing that you, with your experience at Carnegie Mellon, and then Zensors got started, if am correct, is from the Carnegie Mellon Business Incubator. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And how long has Zensors now been in business, or since you were founded?
So it's been about 2 years. We were founded with the help of the Schwartz Center for Entrepreneurship at CMU. And then a lot of the first sort of early part of the company was just taking the fuzzy ideas and things we had done in research, but actually coming up with a consumer grade product and a consumer grade experience. Research is one thing, but building a product that is usable in the market there's a fairly large gap between the two. It's not just that if you have the research, hey, you can put it out there. And so a lot of time was spent on building that experience that we have today, and getting the product sort of showcase ready and usable. And then really we've been putting it out into the world over the last year. So that's kind of been our journey so far.
So that's just an interesting part of you talk about the creativity. You figured out, you learned certain things about AI, saw what works, and then came up with a product idea. How did that kind of finally come into place and saying, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I want Zensors to be.
So I think from a lot of that was actually inspired by my background even before Zensors. A lot of the work that I have done in technology, and the work that I've done in building, infrastructure at previous roles that I had was around taking complex cloud infrastructure concepts, complex concepts around, the cloud services that are very popular today, but making them easy to use for newcomers, for people who've never worked in technology or who are just trying to get up to speed with learning how to write code and learning to start machine learning. So a lot of that was making complex things easy. And I realized that, as time goes on, technology becomes more and more sophisticated. What is, state of the art today becomes table stakes tomorrow. But really what remains a big challenge is not what computers can do, it's what you do with them, right? And so part of that inspired me to think with Zensors, okay, there's all this AI and people can use it, but really, what do people want to do with it? How do people want to use it? And I think that was, a lot of what we've been building over the last year and a half is the functionality and capabilities that, yes, let people create these AI modules on their camera systems, but also putting the building blocks together for how they can start using them to drive the business or to drive operations or to create new customer experiences.
Yeah, and Anuraag, I think what's very interesting with your background and your colleagues' backgrounds in the human machine interfaces, yeah, you've got the AI, but sometimes it's like, oh, that's great, but people are scared, right? Well, I don't know, I'm not going to know how to use that, or so making it, presenting it in a way that's very easy to use, intuitive, so that it can be adapted by the masses, right? Adopted by the masses. That's kind of the unique perspective that you guys are bringing to the equation.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the core tenets from the beginning, is how to make this AI walk up in use. Like, most platforms out there that allow you to build machine learning are very technical in nature. They expect you to know what like precision recall curves are, or they expect you to know, how to define a training set versus a test set. These are terms that, the average person who's never done machine learning is afraid of. They don't know what these things are, and they're afraid. You also hear all these other stories where AI has, bias and problems and does things that, it's not supposed to. And a lot of those are not problems with the AI. It's just a problem with, how you sort of construct these algorithms. And so one of the core tenets for us was make it, really simple so that you don't have to know or worry about these aspects. And then, plug all the gaps in the back where if there's inaccuracies or inadequacies, the system will alert us internally and even sometimes auto fix itself, or alert the user back, suggesting that what they've created is not functioning as expected and they need to change that up.
You talk about the how easy it is to use this technology, because everyone, they think about specifically technology, especially AI. Everyone gets like, I don't know if I could use this in my business. I don't know how I could use this because I don't want to think about things, especially when we're talking security, physical security. So can you demonstrate and show us the technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I could probably just do a quick demo to show you how easy it is. We can just take a camera that's out there in the wild. We often like to pick, public cameras that are available to everyone, so that you can actually see that we're running this on something that's truly out there and not, a special situation that we set up. And then I can walk us through how this might add a ton of business value for someone.
Right. Okay. And then Michael and I might just jump in because it's a description by demoing of describing it for our listeners, not just viewers. That's a very important part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm going to share my screen so everyone can see this. And so, first big thing from a usability tenant is to be completely cloud-based. I know that's something that LENSEC does really well as well, but a lot of security and modern applications are, specifically designed for a single OS or a single desktop. If you want to make things easy, you got to meet the users on what they're familiar with. And the browser is really what everyone is familiar with, right? And even more, it's the cell phone. So web and mobile is the way to go to start off. But yeah, more particularly with Zensors itself, the idea is you can plug into your cameras really easily. So we can hook into your VMS, we can hook into your cameras itself. We're not designed to be a video storage solution as such. So, we're not trying to replace an existing VMS system or an existing video management system. We just connect to it and we provide the intelligence layer. And so while you can see all the cameras here, that these are usually taken from some other system itself. But coming back to the point of how easy it is to build some of this AI, if I have, say, a camera, this is an interesting one I'm going to pick up to play with. This is the camera in Shake Shack in New York. And this is, if you go to Shake Shack's website, they actually have this camera. It's in Madison Square Park. It's publicly available. And so we're just going to try using that and see what we can do with it. So for Zensors, you go in, you say, I want to create some new AI. You pick a camera that's of interest to you. In our case, that would be this camera from Shake Shack. And let's say I'm the business owner, and nowadays, particularly with social distancing and occupancy constraints, there's a lot of problems around enforcing all of these new safety practices, right? I have this little business here. Well, not little, it's Shake Shack, but assume this is my business, and I wanted to figure out if people are crowding outside or people are crowding in line to stand and get their food. It's as easy as I draw a region that I care about, and then I pick a question that I want to ask about this region. So in my case, I might want to ask how many people are standing here.
So all you're doing is you're defining an area, and that area can be, it doesn't have to be a square or a rectangle. It can be a, just custom, just keep going around, and you're simply just asking the software a question.
Yes, absolutely. And then I tell the software maybe how often I want this. So I want to get, check this every minute. So it's pretty much what you would allocate a team member to do. So if you had a team member, and his role was to say, hey, I'm going to go out. And we see this really often. I mean, if you go to any grocery store nowadays, we see this sort of a human process happening where somebody's going to be standing outside with a clicker or iPad, and they're going to be checking how many people are waiting in line, and they're going to be telling you, you can go in and you can go out. I joke that entering Costco is harder than entering a nightclub nowadays.
Yeah.
So, but you have someone doing that, and essentially what we're doing is the same thing, but just using software. And so I call this, store a line as just a quick reference, and that's it. I hit submit, and I'm done. I've created a piece of AI here that's going to actually watch this camera feed for me, and is going to tell me how many people are there every 1 minute. Mm-hmm. And so coming back to go ahead.
I was going to ask a question about AI, and in general, you talk about lines and keeping track of how many people are in line, or if it's an overcrowded building. What other questions can you use Zensors with your cameras to ask in the specific?
So yeah, I think that's a great question, because that's where our maybe the research aspects of novel AI come in. The idea is the algorithms we build learn and get better over time. And so we're not limited to the questions that we have built. Really, it's limited to the types of questions in that you can ask anything that the eye can visibly determine without much difficulty. So if you wanted to count how many of people with backpacks, how many tables occupied, how many trash bins, as long as you and I can see it and we're not debating on its existence in this frame, the AI is going to learn to answer that question. Obviously, now it's important to keep in mind that AI is not all powerful. You can ask like how many people are hiding a gun in their backpack. No. If you can't see it, you can't answer it, right? And so I think that's kind of the sort of interesting balance where you take AI to people. They have to realize that AI is not everything. It's not the holy grail of solutions to their problem. It's not going to instantly make all security concerns go away. But what it is going to do is it has the ability to go in and automate a lot of tedious manual work that maybe people don't enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm. So on this question, if we go ahead and submit this, why don't you just show us, we saw how easy it is to, define an area, ask a question. Why don't you take a quick minute here and show us and then how this stuff populates into a dashboard and other things the Zensors platform can also do.
Yeah, and so, once I go ahead, submit this, it'll take a little bit of time, but I'll go maybe find one that has been running for some time now. And so we have, data from this question. We were running it like a month ago or something as a sample, right? Okay. And you get real-time data. You start seeing trends. You're able to see, when there were people, when there were not people. So it seems like in the month of May, this place had a line on Fridays at like 5 p.m. And
that can be another great answer, not just to security questions, this technology, but also questions about staffing. Do I need that many people at that specific time? What are the trends for walk up at that time? And if we're thinking
Absolutely.
bars or restaurants with capacity issues, when should we take less reservations or take more reservations? So a lot of this technology is very interesting in a variety of different ways. And you probably, Anurag, didn't think how much more this AI could bring to the table in security till COVID-19 in so many ways, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, part of the whole idea of the technology is to be really light and easy. Again, coming back to this concept that we want to make it, really simple for the average person. If you come and tell them you need to plug in, this appliance, and you need to configure this networking, and you need to configure all these layers of compute that go in, that's not an easy experience of getting onboarded to AI. So the whole idea behind Zensors is it's cloud-based, it's available easily. You can hook into, any system. If with our work we've been doing together on the LENSEC system, I mean, it's just a click and your camera show up in Zensors, and you can start making these questions. So we actually have deployed to a couple of large businesses during this pandemic period, remotely and within, days. Sometimes even hours, to help them start collecting data on sort of 25 locations of their operation.
Wow. Yeah, because the advantage is you're taking infrastructure that is already there, and you're taking the output from those cameras or the video management software. You're receiving that data, and whether it's a snapshot every 10 seconds or every 30 seconds or whatever, and then it's compiling that information. One other piece I wanted to, if you could quickly show us too, as I know you then have the ability to, you have the dashboards that show things, but you also have the ability to then push this information out so that it can be customer facing. If you're asking a question, are there open seats at the bar? Are there empty tables? For a citywide maybe deployment, you want to know, maybe the city wants to know, are there any garbage cans that are overflowing, right? So instead of having people go a continuous route, they might just be able to do other things. And when they get an alert that there's a garbage can overflowing, they send someone to that location to get it. The thing I like about it is in security, a lot of times the security budget is the thing that gets allocated money last, but it's the budget that also gets cut the first, right? People aren't thinking about it. But with some of these different platforms such as Zensors, now you're able to say, hey, let me have a little bit of money from the operations side and bring that to me, because now they're being able to use the security system, the VMS platform, in conjunction with Zensors to bring back operational things. So now you can share that expense, and people can move forward with products and projects that typically were just wishful thinking when it came to the security team.
Absolutely. And I think this is where, it becomes really compelling for the current scenario where, you're trying to understand how to reopen, you're trying to understand how to manage occupancy. You want to invest in something that's not, going to break the bank, but also you want to try and sort of align it with future projects, right? So what happens if you put this really specialist hardware system for COVID management, and then, next year there's a vaccine and we don't need it? So I think this is sort of the interesting duality where you're investing in your security infrastructure, you're investing in the camera system. It's a long-term investment. You're not putting CapEx down, so you're already leveraging what you have. And it's something that, you'll continue to use even after. So here's an example of how you could use the dashboard component to really build out the capability for, managing occupancy and social distancing, as an example. So you can come in, we have these live tiles. You can pick from a whole host. We have a ton of different tiles. And then you just connect a tile to a data feed. So in our case, we talked about how many people were in line at the Shake Shack store. So we can just put that in and say, hey, there was one person in line here. And so I can call this line, and I can say the line is safe as long as there's, less than 6 people in there. But the minute it's more than 6, because that's my, 50% of fire code threshold that is being set by corporate, or it's been set by the state, or it's set by the city. And then you can go in, pick, say, hey, it's red, it's going to be an alert. It's more than, 6 people. And then you can start constructing this. So this could be for an entire facility. This could be, I could put this up for an entire zone. It's really customizable. You can put in your logo, your brand, customize this to however you really want it to be. So I call this line A. If I was a school or a campus trying to open, I could have this at every entrance for every floor. So I could say floor or room 22. And then I would have to connect it to some question of, occupancy that I had made from room 22. And I would say that room has fire code capacity of like 12 people. And so, it's 12 is like a green, 13 is orange, and then, more than 15 is like, okay, that's a problem. I need to go attend to that.
Yeah, and then the system can send alerts out.
Yes,
to cell phones. So I appreciate it. If you can stop sharing your screen, we'll just come back. And we'll finish up. But I think what you were able to show in those few minutes of the screen there is it's you can see the human machine interface and how easy it is to, you've made it a very easy interface for people to not be afraid of, right? Because like anything, if you're afraid of it, or it just seems imposing, you're not going to use it. But I like how you're able to then take that information, post it on public facing spots as well. I know you guys do a lot of stuff, or you're in the Pittsburgh airport locally here. What other areas are you seeing, vertical markets or areas are you seeing that your software is being adopted?
Yeah, so the good part about a platform like this is it's not really tied to any particular vertical. So nothing about it is unique to the airport or to large office spaces. But we are seeing a lot of interest from retail and a bunch of essential businesses nowadays, because those are the ones that have to grapple with large crowds, people coming in and out, managing safety, doing mass detection. That's another really popular question, is what percentage of my people in my store are not wearing masks or are wearing masks? And then send me an alert if that's more than like 5%. And so that's something we've been doing a lot. And that's, really business agnostic. That's been airlines, airports, retail. I think we're now seeing also a lot more, and we had in the past, before the COVID-19, was interest from commercial real estate. So understanding office space density, occupancy, classroom utilization, campus utilization, cafeteria density. So I think any sort of large complex space that has multiple functions, whether it's a college campus or a school campus, whether it's, like you said, an airport, it's really hard for them to go in and buy hardware sensors because, they have like 10 different types of things going on. They have food space, they have learning space, they have aggregation space, they have desk space, it's multi-use. And one of the big things for Zensors is that we're sort of use case agnostic to that sense. And so we can cover your entire campus for 10 different things, as opposed to bringing in 10 different solutions and then, hiring a data scientist and then putting it together and trying to be your own data science shop.
Anuraag, let me ask you too, as far as you were talking about asking cameras a question. Is there a limitation to how many questions? Can you ask multiple questions of the same camera? Because maybe that camera has dual purposes, right? Maybe it's checking, an entrance, but it's also checking a lobby. And maybe you need to know, you want to ask a question specific to the entrance of an area, but then you also may want to ask a separate question that also is within the field of view of that camera. Is there any limitation?
Absolutely. So, that's an interesting point, because a lot of times people think you can only run one metric or two metrics. There is no limit on how many different polygons and questions you could create on a single camera. We have some really complex camera scenes that are looking at, operations that are like at airports or other facilities like industrial that are really complex. You might want to ask people, safety, hard hats, equipment availability, safety zones. And so a single camera could be asking like 15, 20 questions. I think the limitation is not really in volume, but it's more in what is the limit of like that question, right? What can it not ask? Like, can you ask me how many, but how many of my customers are happy. And that's something, we don't support because it's really difficult and fuzzy for machine learning to produce an accurate answer. Now, I'm not saying it can't produce an answer. There's definitely stuff out there that, people can do for sentiment and things like that. But again, part of what, Zensors is really trying to drive is not creating uncertainty around AI. So we try and support a set of things that we know will deliver quality, so that when a customer asks a question, if it's not supported, the algorithm cannot learn to answer it. It actually sends back a notification saying, hey, this question is not supported. Please reframe as X, or, please, this is an alternate suggested question, or we'll work with you to suggest some questions. So there's a couple of ways of managing that, but ensuring that, the user is not afraid that they're going to ask the wrong question, and then it's going to be their fault that the AI didn't work.
Well, and one real thing before, throw back to Neil, just to confirm what you said. So you can do, you were mentioning what percentage of people are wearing face masks. So it can detect just simply if someone is wearing a face mask or not wearing a face covering. Yeah,
absolutely. That's been something we've actually deployed on a ton of cameras in the last month alone. Okay. And that's, the beauty is we can work with existing cameras to do that. And so that becomes very, very compelling for especially large businesses that have public liability.
Right. Okay.
So now, speaking, and we talked about masks, we talked about social distancing. What do you see the trends with your product moving forward with COVID-19 and
yeah, so I think, the mask and social distancing stuff is here and now, but I think eventually that's going to, go away or going to win out. I think the bigger realization that people are going to have as a result of all of this pandemic that's going on is the idea that space needs to be given a lot more thought and a lot more sort of active mind share as far as how it's managed, how it's controlled, how it's used. We have trillions of dollars of real estate, commercial real estate, that's sitting empty today. Most sort of large Class A commercial buildings just are operational, but nobody's going in. So I think that's sort of a lack of emphasis on having put in such systems that allow us to say, okay, something happened, just dial it down, turn the knob, only 20%, we're safe, we have the metrics, we know it, people are alerted, it's somewhat automated. I think, we do that in a couple of other types of industries and verticals, right? Like automated manufacturing has all these controls. If you're, manufacturing line or some stage of your manufacturing line is running behind the schedule and your production is going to get delayed, it's going to trigger something, it triggers down the chain and inventory slows down and then you have just-in-time inventory. But with the sort of commercial real estate, which is a huge aspect of our lives, right? Whether it's the malls we go to, whether it's the offices we sit in, or whether it's the school our children go to, why are we not sort of taking them with the same level of sophistication as we do these other processes? And I think that's the fundamental change that we're going to see.
Okay. And as far as so that's stuff that a lot of stuff that is already on in your product, right? It's able to do it today. So where do you see your product moving? By the end of the year, maybe by next year? I know you guys can do some changes, but are there any things on the horizon that currently are not a part of your product release that you wanted to kind of maybe just give everyone a little bit of tease about some opportunities or things coming up?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the AI piece of things is we're just getting started. We've only scratched the surface of what's actually possible. Within our own AI lab internally, we have about 10 different ideas and prototypes for how you can, not just use AI to watch the cameras, but start operating different functionality. One of the things we're started deploying now, and it's gonna, we'll put something out more formally, is something around sanitation in an automated fashion. So how to figure out when and where to send sanitation, not as per human judgment or human scheduling, but on a purely automated needs-based and use foot traffic-based approach. And so, using AI to really start making process decisions that today might be very, very analog. And I think there's a lot that can be unlocked there that we're going to head towards.
Now, Michael, to finish up, summarize any more thoughts about Anuraag and Zensors.
Well, I think it's a very obviously at LENSEC, we heard of you because I am actually in Pittsburgh and you're with Carnegie Mellon. We saw some information about your company, so we wanted to have conversations. And what we really were intrigued was just the ease of use, because our product, particularly at LENSEC, easy to use, intuitive, and we saw that with your product, obviously with the background that you guys bring to the equation with the human machine interfacing. There's a lot of similarities that we feel between our companies. So your product, we're just ecstatic about. We think it's a great solution using existing stuff that's already out there and deployed, and the money's already been spent. This is something that people can now take that to the next level pretty quickly and easily, and add some additional features to the solution. And I touched on it earlier as well. Now not just using it in the safety budget, but now being able to use it more for operations as well for some of these organizations to get them a lot of intelligence that's delivered quickly and easily back to the management team. So there's a lot of great things in Zensors, the product that you guys have created. We're excited about it and excited where it's going from here.
So
now, you may obviously, if you want to, obviously, how would people who are interested in finding out more information about your product or inquiring about, how to buy it, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and your team?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of different ways. They can reach out to you, and they can, if you already have worked with them, you can facilitate connecting them to us, or they can just go to our website, which is up here, Zensors.com. It's just Zensors.com, and they'll be able to get some more information. They can reach out to us, they can contact us, they can chat with us through the website. So yeah, any of the typical ways.
Yeah, and I think one of the takeaways about this whole conversation, and you mentioned it too, is the ease of deployment. I think earlier in the conversation, you've talked even during COVID-19, you've been able over the last month and a half, been able to deploy some face mask detection into systems without even having to go on site, right? So
Yep,
they're not there's no, whether they're reselling partners of ours or other companies, obviously safety is number one right now. And the nice advantage is if you don't have to send somebody on site to actually potentially come in contact with somebody and contract COVID-19, the better off you are. But you're able to still add these, this to a deployment with no one going on site. That's a big advantage in today's current environment.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've seen companies really take up to that, especially, multi-location companies. If you have like 3, 4, 5 locations that are distributed, you can't really get people out to all of them. There's really no other way to do it right now.
Exactly. Well, again, everyone needs to check out Zensors, but also check out lensec.com/live. Check up any of our live broadcasts. Follow us on all social media platforms and stay tuned, especially on Facebook and LinkedIn for new updates. And we appreciate, Anuraag, you coming by and showing this awesome technology. I'm thinking of different questions that this AI could answer. That could be a fun game, to tell you the truth, things that this technology can do.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. We didn't even think of that. That's a good one to keep in mind.
Yeah, what the camera can really tell you. Yeah, when you're looking through the lens of a camera, now that AI technology, oh my goodness, for sure. Well, I appreciate you coming by, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
That's your perspective. All right, Michael, thanks again. And guys, tune in next week to another What's Your Perspective?